Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we are doing another tag video. This one is actually one of mine. So before I did the Michael Myers tag, so this time I'm doing the Jason Voorhees tag. That's right, folks. We're calling on all you Friday the 13th freaks out there. So this is going to be made up of 8 questions. The first one is, if there was never a sequel to Friday the 13th from 1980, do you think it would still be considered a classic? Now, I know a lot of people don't actually think that way. They're not huge fans of the original. It's kind of low on their ranking. But to me personally, I do think it would be a classic. For one thing, there would be no franchise without it. And another thing is, I love the film. I think it's scary, and I love the fact that the killer is a mystery until the final act. And I think it's got great suspense, and I love the performance of Betsy Palmer as Mrs. Voorhees. And I just think it's an awesome movie. It's one of my favorite horror movies ever. So that's my answer for that one. So next one, question 2 is, what's your favorite Friday the 13th film? And same as the first question, Friday the 13th from 1980, the original classic. And it is a classic to me. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I love the performance of Betsy Palmer as Mrs. Voorhees. I think the film's got great suspense. It's got some of the most memorable kills of the franchise. The gore effects were awesome, as done by the great Tom Savini. And I love the fact that the killer is a mystery, and I think Adrienne King is a great final girl. I love her performance. And especially that scene at the end is one of the greatest scenes in horror history, in my opinion, when she's in that canoe at the end in the Crystal Lake. And Jason rises from the lake and pulls her into the water. It's horrifying. It's awesome. Okay, next up is question 3. What's your least favorite Friday the 13th film? So for me, it's definitely Jason Goes to Hell. That's the one I like the least. I just don't care for that movie at all. I hate the look of Jason, for one thing. He's got that really small mask. There's not much left of it. And then he's got this big, giant, bubbly head. It just looks weird. I don't like it. And I think the story is weird. It's off. It doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th movie when you got Jason possessing people and going from body to body. It just doesn't fit into the Friday the 13th franchise to me. So next up is question 4 is, who's your favorite final girl in the franchise? And that's easy for me. It's Ginny. Amy Steele from Friday the 13th Part 2 is one of the best final girls in horror, period. I love how she is invested in the history of Jason. She believes that he could be still out there, and he's intrigued by the story of how Jason might be out there to get revenge on his mother's death. You see her in that scene in the bar with the other guys talking about it. And then later on, she uses the child psychology that she learned in school against Jason. And I love how she battles wits with the madman Jason Voorhees in that third act, which is just incredible. I love that scene. You've done your job well, Jason. Mommy is proud, when she puts on the mother's sweater and pretends to be Mrs. Voorhees. I just love that scene. It's great. It's brilliant. So next up is, what's your favorite kill in the franchise? So for me, it's the hatchet death scene in Friday the 13th Part 2 once again. That scene is brutal, vicious, and particularly cruel because the guy's in a wheelchair and he gets the hatchet right to his face, and you see it in all the glory detail. And not just that, after that he falls down this huge flight of stairs. So not only does he get the hatchet in the face, he falls down this huge concrete stairs. It's just brutal. Okay, next up, question 6. Who was your favorite actor to play Jason in the franchise? That is a tough one. I know a lot of people love Kane Hodder, and Kane is great. And he played Jason the most times, 4 times. But for me, it's C.J. Graham from Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. I just think he's the definitive look of Jason, the definitive portrayal of the Jason character in every way. I love the look of him. I love the beginning when you see him first come out of the grave and he's all nasty, rotted out, and maggot infested. And I just love that scene when he picks up his mask and then he turns around slowly and he's got the spear in his hand. So awesome. And that look at the end has become iconic too, when he gets the chain put around his neck from Tommy Jarvis and sinks to the bottom of the lake tied to the big boulder. And just the look with the chain and everything about his look is awesome. And I think CJ does a perfect job as him. So next up is question 7. Were you happy with the events of Part 5? And if not, what would you have done differently? So that's an interesting question, isn't it? I wasn't happy with the events of Part 5. I actually do like the film, but I don't like the twist ending. I feel it was like kind of a cop-out, and of course that guy, spoiler, Roy, was only in the film for like a minute. So we had no time to invest in his character, so it was kind of just so random how Jason ended up being him. And so what would I have done differently? I would have done what they were kind of hinting at during the movie, and that is Tommy Jarvis. Make Tommy Jarvis the killer. And that would have been compelling and interesting, you know, and maybe even follow it up in the next film. So that's what I would have done. I would have made Tommy Jarvis the killer. Why not? If you're gonna do that type of twist, go for it all the way, you know. Alright, so number 8 is, do you think the next Friday the 13th film should be a remake of the 1980 film, a sequel to the 2009 reboot, or an all-new story? So my answer to that is I would actually do a remake of the original film from 1980. I would love to see more of the Pamela Voorhees character. I just think she was such an interesting character, and she was played so well by Betsy Palmer. I want to see more. I want to see what it would be like nowadays. Maybe show a little bit of prequel type stuff, you know, of Jason as a child and his mother raising him. I think that would be interesting. And of course, show her in full slasher killer mode, definitely. And I would make the film have a little bit more focus on the camp element of Camp Crystal Lake. And maybe have some actual kids in it, like we saw in like movies like Sleepaway Camp. They did actually bring kids into the franchise in the 6th film, which I love. But most of the films, it just focuses on the camp counselors. So I would like to see some more focus on the kids. Alright, so that's it for my Jason Voorhees tag, guys. That was a lot of fun. So now it's my turn to tag some people. I'm going to tag a whole bunch of people. So first off, I'm going to tag Horrific Nightmares JM. I'm going to tag HorrorMetal. I'm going to tag Bronco Juggalo Talks Movies. I'm going to tag Movie Massacre. And I'm going to tag Lisa Loves. So guys, are you up for the challenge, you Friday the 13th freaks out there? If anybody wants to do a response video to this, I would really enjoy seeing your responses. So thank you guys for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared.